And so from there, really trying to evaluate, okay, how can we make these common actions or common workflows much more accessible and quicker to discover early on in the
So there are
journey?
these two main parts that it does, but we don't want it to be these two isolated parts. We want to kind of draw the connections between the things that you need to do in the data and the strategies, and really make this holistic view of CRO.
That's Jake Lambert and Nick Key. I'm Sean McCarthy, and this is the Lucky Orange Show. Now, if you've been anywhere in the Lucky Orange ecosystem for the past few months, you've probably heard us talking about something called Lucky Orange Discovery, which is a huge initiative for our team and for our product moving forward. And today's discussion is a conversation with two guys that sit at the absolute center of this project. I had a great time talking to these two guys, catching up about everything regarding AI, LLM, everything we're working on with this interface, even talk about word clouds, which I love a word cloud. Let's not delay any longer. Let's get into the conversation with Jake Lambert and Nick Key. All right, Nick Key, Jake Lambert, my boys, are you ready to pod and talk all about discovery today? How's everybody feeling today?
Super ready. Yes.
Good. How about you, Jake?
Equally ready.
Equally ready. That, if that doesn't have people on the edge of their seats, I don't know what will. So today, like I said, we're talking all about discovery, and we're at an interesting point in this project where we've kind of got a really good direction. We know what we're working towards. There's a lot of heads down grinding. Some days Jake will be at his desk for the entire day, headphones in, and, dead to the world aside from working on discovery. And then we've started to talk about it publicly, which has been really interesting to get feedback and get ideas from people. And so, there's a little bit of positive pressure from the market saying, yeah, this seems like a good idea. We want it. So I think it's an interesting time to be talking about the project and the initiative as a whole. Let's start by kind of setting the groundwork here. I want to have each of you kind of introduce your role at Lucky Orange, but more specifically what you've been working on in your role as it pertains to the discovery initiative. Why don't we start with you, Nick?
Yeah. So I'm the senior product designer here. In relation to discovery, really kind of the origin of discovery started with Jake and I prototyping a lot and trying to figure out what this ideal version of discovery in app was. So dealing a lot with the project planning side, but also the roadmap and the prototyping side of it. As the project's gone on, I've kind of been able to expand my role a little past just product designer in terms of discovery. So, and I think that's just par for the course when it comes to these newer technologies. You kind of got to be able to wear multiple hats, and sometimes those are new hats. So that's kind of how I've taken on discovery so far. I don't see that expanding past anything. Please don't give me more code to look at as much as I've already looked at and trying to learn. But yeah, that's kind of the gist of my role here.
That's great. And I do want to talk at some point today about kind of the collaboration that's happened. A lot of this exploration of stuff that nobody here really knew about. And Jake, that's been a lot of what you've spent time on. Can you share kind of what your role is and how you've been working on this project?
Yeah. So I'm the business analyst here at Lucky Orange. But for specifically discovery, this project, I've been working on and writing and designing the back end for all of this, the knowledge graph, the models, the prompts, all of that, and kind of like what Nick was saying with the many hats, it's taken on a bunch of different parts. So there are long parts of really refining the models or the prompts. Right now, I'm in the middle of building more the architecture of all of this rather than specific functions, just making it so it's fast and efficient and scalable. It's a little bit with what Nick's saying with stop giving me more code that I don't understand to go figure out. But it has been fun just doing all these different things that I haven't done before.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's crazy to think that Jake and I had no idea what we were signing up for whenever we offered to take all the Google courses about close to a year and a half ago now. We thought we were just trying to stay up to speed with the markets, and turns out learning those things ends up getting you front and center of the project. So
there you go. We love a good professional development session.
Yeah.
So before we go too far, some people listening will have heard of Discovery, especially if you're on the Lucky Orange newsletter list. We've talked about it. If you've checked out our website, we have a page that we'll mention later on. But Nick, could you kind of level set with people right now about kind of where Discovery is at, what it does right now, if you're lucky enough to be a beta tester, what you could do with it, and then maybe before we get to general release, what we're still working on, and kind of the status of the project and initiative right now.
Yeah, so currently Discovery as it sits is our in-house AI model that we're using to enhance user value while in Lucky Orange, trying to speed up that time to discovery, hence the name, of key insights and valuable performance metrics for your site, and really trying to make that process a lot easier and more accessible for not just new users, but existing users who may have already had established workflows, but through usage data and trying to understand through user research, really seeing that a lot of users are spending way too much time doing very specific tasks. And we realized there was a lot of things there that we could optimize and potentially, if not remove from their workflows, speed up exponentially. So really Discovery is our the first iteration or the current iteration that we have now is really just free open prompting to our discovery agent to allow you to ask questions, get responses, be able to source data, or even learn how to do specific things in app that maybe Discovery doesn't have direct access to right now. It can at least teach you those things. So it's an all-in-one Q&A in a way platform where it allows you to not only just get answers about your data, but also Lucky Orange data and how to use it. So that's kind of where it sits today with just free-based prompting through the app.
Yeah, it's super cool. I mean, as somebody who uses Chat GPTs and Perplexities and Claudes regularly for a variety of research tasks, this feels really natural when I go to use it and talk to it about using Lucky Orange and about my data. You kind of alluded to one thing that we've had on our big board over the past couple of years, which is these knowing doing gaps. There's a gap between knowing what something is and what to do with it, or knowing that I should use a heat map, but ultimately knowing how to use it, what to do with it. And so it feels like Discovery is attacking a few different gaps. And one of those primary ones that I feel like it's really good at already, even though it's still in development, is teaching you how to use Lucky Orange, teaching you where to go inside the tools, get more value out of that subscription that you're paying for. Jake, we've invited, I think, over 50 beta testers now. It's not a huge list, but we're getting some usage in there. What are you doing with that usage information that's coming through? So people are prompting. One of the great mysteries of this is, what will people ask Discovery at scale? What are these questions people are they going to ask for? Political advice? We hope so, because you're training it. No, I'm just kidding. But what the heck are people going to ask this? And people are starting to ask questions. Not necessarily what are people asking it so far, but how are you using that to refine this engine that you've built behind the scenes for Discovery?
Not everybody thinks the same. Not everybody has the same workflows. And I used to be, or I still am, but I used to be the business analyst here. So using Lucky Orange and using Lucky Orange data to analyze how the website's doing and how so many other things are doing is what I did/do. And so a lot of, I guess, flows and designs started with, well, what do I do if I'm trying to research how our PPC campaigns are doing? What steps do I take personally? And then how can I make AI automate that? And that's great for me, but there's plenty of people that don't work in the same way as me. They don't want to know the same things as me. And when they ask a question, they're not expecting the same thing from me. And so we want to hear what our customers want to know. We want to hear what they are looking for, what they're expecting for a response. And then we'll make Discovery do that. We spent a lot of time making it agile. So as the market changes, or what people want out of it change, or as we learn more about how people want to use it, We can easily switch what it does, what it recommends, what it's most likely to do, to fit that. And that's really what we'll be using a lot of that. A lot of the usage for is figuring out what the heck people want out of it.
Right, right. And so, you've taken a great first shot at what should go into the knowledge graph and what should go into the back end. And as I understand it, that's pulling from our help docs, it's pulling from our blogs and content. And then it's also just pulling from some CRO tips and advice and stuff that we fed it in general and combining these things. And I know that recently you made a pretty large upgrade to how it functions, both in how it receives questions and communicates things and asks. Could you talk a little bit about maybe technically, without giving away all the secret sauce, the blueprints and the stuff that you've been working on recently when it comes to the more technical side of this?
Yeah. There are kind of two main pillars of, I guess, information or things that it can do, things that it'll be looking for. One, it being, like you said, our help docs and blogs, and this CRO strategy tips and tricks store that we have, and then also just the Lucky Orange data, your website data, what queries to make, how to make them, what filters to apply, all those things. So there are these two main parts that it does, but we don't want it to be these two isolated parts. We want to kind of really blur the lines between them and draw the connections between the things that you need to do in the data and the strategies and the tips and the things to look for, and really make this holistic view of CRO. And all that lives in something called a knowledge graph. And it's just, there are these different nodes of information, CRO tips, data pulls it can do, and we just draw lines between them. And so when it's pulling, when you're asking about one thing, there are so many other things that are directly related to it, directly connected to it, that it knows about and has ready. So it can be on the lookout for recommendations and bringing up things that you didn't even know existed. If you're asking about a specific thing, it can say, like, here's the answer to your specific thing, but it wouldn't say, but I noticed in my training data, but I noticed in my training data that right next to it is this other idea that you didn't, that maybe you haven't considered. So really just giving a holistic view of all of CRO and trying to make discovery perform that.
Yeah. I mean, it's the end goal, the ultimate goal, and we'll talk maybe about some of the things that are on the roadmap, is for this to be a CRO assistant, kind of an always on thing that knows your websites, knows your data, knows how to do CRO, and all of these things combined to guide you in the right direction as it goes down the path. And I think one thing that's interesting is that there is a discovery tool inside our app right now, and there has been for a little while. Nick, can you maybe talk about what that is and how that's evolved into this, the discovery function that's in there right now, and how this is kind of a continuation, and a much bigger scale, but a continuation of what's already in there?
Yeah, definitely a much bigger scale. What's in there currently really stemmed from the recognition from user feedback and just talking with customers about how they use Lucky Orange. Really seeing that there's a core set of questions or things that users always are asking or coming to us, whether they're coming to us for help on those things, or if they're coming to us to say, this is what I'm wanting to do, how do I do this? So first, by just recognizing that there is a specific set of things that all users were wanting to do. And so from there, really trying to evaluate, okay, how can we make these common actions or common workflows much more accessible and quicker to discover early on in the journey? So when you first set up Lucky Orange, you're not always going to have a ton of data to go just hop in and start looking at, right? But there's still plenty of things that we know that you can do to find value early on. And so the first set was really just providing a kind of a launching pad for those quick actions. And so it started with us just providing a static list of questions or queries that we knew were common amongst all of our users. And then pointing those defined queries to very specific points in the app, whether that was to launch a specific type of session recording or to filter the visitors table down to a specific subset of people or users. We knew that people wanted to do that, but maybe didn't know how always, and realized they weren't always going to the help docs, right? So how do we provide a surface in app that does that? And so the first evolution of that started with, like I said, just static prompts or defined prompts that we've set aside and said these are the 10 things that we know provide value early on. And then from there, transitioning to see how do we make that bit more custom, bit more customized to the user's experience in general, and then another step forward to where we're beta testing now, where we are allowing custom prompting. So really started with just identifying a few core concepts of what are users looking for and what are they wanting to do early on. And then once they get past those things, are they still able to be power users essentially without those quick actions? And noticing how many times they come back to that early version of discoveries, if they interact with it a few times and then never come back, it probably is more so a case of, well, they've hit the limit on these 10 things we've provided are
For
valuable.
sure.
They've learned those things. They know now what to do or how to look for it. So now we're getting to the point of how do we expand past that? But I think one of the key things with that early version was really less about the actually like performing the action for them, but teaching the user the steps required in order to get to that end result. And we removed a lot of the steps for them, but it was really important to still have those things be communicated through that experience to say, here's what's happening and here's how we're getting here. Even if it is just a static list of questions or queries,
Mm-hmm.
we want to be able to teach the user early on of how to become a more powerful user and find more value out of Lucky Orange. And so that's kind of that next evolution of this is continuing that journey. Now you've recognized value. You become an expert at using Lucky Orange. How do you become an expert in your own site's data now? And that's really the next step of discovery will allow you to do.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that that we've talked about how this involves AI, but what you're talking about is why this matters. We know that Lucky Orange, and just to be more general, heat mapping, session recording tools, GA4, these are all super powerful tools, data heavy platforms. The unlock is when you know how to use filtering and segmentation and build out groups of visitors, specific things to look for on a heat map. And the current version of Discovery, before we launch the new one, is already a helpful tool in narrowing down your focus. And there's a lot of different ideas and ways to push to educate people and help them understand this. But we know that you, as a user, we don't want to demand that you go read 15 blog posts and 20 help docs just to be able to get value out of the platform. And so this is a really kind of narrowing of the focus. And one thing that I think you guys have both brought up, and I'll throw a question back here, is that we've talked about how this is AI, this is LLM, but it's a user interface that's helpful when you're using our tools. So maybe it doesn't really matter that it's AI, it's just helpful. So how are you guys thinking about the AI part of Discovery as we go to share this with the world?
The AI part is very. I look at him like a very useful intern more so than like a CRO expert, and that's because Lucky Orange, we're the CRO experts, not this general large language model, and it can follow instructions very well, and it can synthesize a lot of information that it's given into a nice summary very well, but just by nature of how LLMs work, it's not so much load your situation into ChatGPT and it'll just come up with great old advice. It's a lot more around packaging curated information and making it specific to the user. So if somebody types into Discovery, how are my PPC campaigns doing? what what does that mean? What are my PPC campaigns? How is it doing? What does that mean to you? What does that mean to anybody? And so one of the main jobs of the AI is to figure out what you mean by that, and figure out what you mean by my PPC campaigns. Because when you're writing queries for data, you can't just say my PPC campaigns and expect all that to work.
Right.
So it's doing a lot of that, translating from the user message into this is what we need to pull, this is how we need to pull it, and generating those queries. And the other way that it's really being used is at the end of all that, when we have the data pulled, we have these chunks, these documents, helping or of tips about what to do about whatever problem you asked about, and also information about your site, about your specific use case. It can then package all that up into a very specific response about here is what you and your site is doing and what you should do about it for your site. I'm a very example-based learner. So like in school, if they're like, here's the equation for this, that wouldn't mean anything to me when it's just like all the symbols and the A's and the B's and the X's. But taking through a couple of problems, an example of this is how it is, that makes sense to me. And that's how I did. That's how I learned a lot of coding, is just go to Stack Overflow or whatever and look for people with similar problems, see how they solved it, apply it to yourself. But now the huge thing with LLMs is it can take that advice as well as the knowledge of what I'm doing and really give me specific examples, specific advice to what I'm doing in my use case. And I think that's a great way to learn and a great way to convey these insights. So that's really what it's doing. It's not per se generating the insights itself.
Just to touch on something Jake said there that I think is really important too, is kind of the mention of these other AI tools that exist currently, whether it's ChatGPT or Claude. There's a lot of upfront work I think that's still required on the user in terms of being able to visualize or see the finish line that they're wanting to end up at. Whereas really our goal here is to be able to paint the picture or, show you that finish line before you've gotten there, because we know that establishing the key steps in the workflow and being able to show you where you're going to end up before you get there is really important for you to actually understand the data that's being presented. And hopping into Lucky Orange and not having a clear finish line of or goal or objective that you're trying to accomplish there really ends up being kind of a lackluster experience, right? You're really not getting much return if you don't know what you're wanting to get out of it. And so Discovery is really trying to amplify that finish line and say, I know where you're wanting to end up. I can also get you there, but while keeping the importance of communicating those steps so that you're not necessarily always having to rely on Discovery, but I think the way that you approach Discovery will slowly evolve and kind of become a bit more nuanced with your idea or your expectations of the end goal that whether that is the data you're looking for or whether that's the specific behaviors or insights that you're trying to get out of Lucky Orange. It's not always easy to have that in mind. Not everybody's able to kind of think with the end goal in mind. So really just trying to eliminate those steps. Whereas, if you were to go to a ChatGPT or a Claude, you can definitely provide it with large amounts of data and query it and ask questions about that stuff. But if you still don't have an idea of what you want, where the end of that conversation is, it's really hard for it to be as valuable. So I think that's really one of the biggest benefits of Discovery as it continues to evolve, is just being able to create clearer pictures for users of this is where you not necessarily should be, but seeing where you want to be, and then also being able to provide you with alternate routes that may either be more valuable or at least be able to support your original goal.
I think that's what, that being the kind of the cornerstone of all this, the That's what makes this different than a lot of what we're seeing come to market from our competitors. I think that historically we've always known, like we've said, there are gaps and that there are knowledge gaps with these data platforms. And so like Lucky Orange, you have to come in and know what you're doing. There's 100% of the potential for insight currently lies on the user, understanding how to use the platform. Discovery will continue to shift that balance away from the user and require less of them to get to insights. And along the way, making them a better website operator, a CRO. We know most people who are using our tools aren't just optimizing the website. They've got a wide range of different responsibilities. So this shifts the role of the user into less than 100% responsible for getting to insight. What we see coming from competitors in the market a lot is things like session summary. Well, an individual session summary, that's cool. It tells you what happened during a session, but it ultimately doesn't really change much about your experience using the tools. Even some of our competitors that have AI driven insights engines that are saying there's 4% more of this event happening on this page from this traffic source. Again, that is helpful, but in the broader picture, it doesn't really push you in the direction of being better at your job or being a better CRO, leading to a better website. You of course will use those insights and make good decisions, but along the way, you're not really learning anything. It's like when a teacher just ultimately gives you the answers and says, do you see how I got there? Well, like, no, I see the answer, and I might try and replicate it in the next time I get this similar question. And so I think that that's a really, really important thing to continue on. And it has continued on. I mean, we've been working on this for several months now. And that keeps showing up in these meetings and keeps showing up in these conversations of saying, this is a user-centric experience. We're not chasing the gold rush of AI to market just to say we have AI to, trick people into spending more money with us. Like, no, we want the experience of using Lucky Orange to be better. And we want the experience of using heat maps and session recordings, as much as you want to use them, to be better. We want you to be better at using them. So I think that's going to be really, really important to maintain that energy as it goes through. And kind of speaking of meetings, I know both of you have taken on some leadership in this project. Obviously, that's why we're talking about. But we're not the only people involved in this project. It's a very cross-functional thing. Almost every part of the company has touched this at one point or another. So I'm curious if either of you could kind of share what that collaboration has been like as we're chasing something that, like we've talked about, nobody in the organization was really an expert at this stuff before. We might be product experts, we might be CRO experts, but how has that collaboration played out as this project has evolved?
I think it's been great to in shaping how discovery works and how it operates and how it thinks. There's so many, as you said, like Nick's a product person, I'm a data person, you're a brand
Podcast
marketing
person.
Podcast person. That's right. So everybody has their own expertise, and I'm on the marketing team, but I'm not a good marketer. Nobody here has ever asked me, hey, can you write up this ad copy or anything like that? Very smartly not asking me that. So there's a lot of, instead of being like, I don't know what to do and just trying to come up with my own tips, go to the people who it's their job to know and have these tips and write all this content. And so a lot of it has been trying to not only have them inform all this stuff, but give them ways to change and influence discovery in the future. The knowledge graph, where all our tips and all of our the secret sauce is, in a way, it's my baby, but in a way, I want nothing to do with it once it's built, because I don't know anything about CRO. So I am more building ways for people like Sean and Sarah and Molly to go and have them tell you, this is what the new hotness is in CRO and how to make your site better. And with our customer support team, them informing what questions do customers usually come to you with, what things do you want help with, because we didn't want to make discovery be able to adjust your billing or do anything like that, because it's more focused on CRO than it is Lucky Orange specifically. And while it so the it's been fun. It's been fun working with everybody because I was very siloed in
Yeah,
my role before. I was the only data guy, so it was nice to work with people.
I love
Well,
that.
I
And
think
Nick, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think too, like it, we're kind of lucky in a spot where we were already a little bit used to this, where at Lucky Orange, we use Lucky Orange to continue to improve Lucky Orange, right? Well, I think we realized really early on that this tool isn't made for a specific group of people or a very specific role or type of person. It needs to be flexible enough to work for everyone, whether you are on the customer support team or you're in marketing. We know that those roles are shared with, in terms of how they use Lucky Orange might be different, but they're all in there. And so it needs to be flexible enough to accommodate those needs from each team. And I think that has been reflected not only in the outcome or the output of discovery, but then also, like you're saying, in the process of building it. I think we've done a really good job of listening to the very varying amount of voices and opinions in the room, whether that's how discovery looks or how it functions, or even just the how it's perceived of how we're wanting to communicate what is discovery to users. I think that's all come through really successfully so far, because of those collaboration efforts. I think my role specifically, I probably get to collaborate with more kind of different people every day than a lot of people, but uh, it's been a thing of really trying to draw on each other's strengths, because I don't know anything about uh, back end developing of an AI or an LLM, but I do know a lot about front end, and there's things that I can look at. And so, really being able to say, raise your hand when you don't know what to do, or if you are able to recognize that you're not the expert in this and that you do need to get help. And it's important to do that only because the person going to be interacting with this is probably in a very similar spot. And so
For sure.
discovery needs to be able to kind of meet you in the middle and connect those gaps between roles, and kind of play the part as a moderator. And sometimes with communicating what it's outputting, what your intentions were going in, some of the things that it's outputting, you may be sharing with leadership, a leadership team, or you may be sharing those with your marketing team to kind of support maybe some of their campaigns they've been running. Those things aren't always easy for certain roles to communicate effectively. And I think Discovery so far has done a really good job at being able to be that middleman in a way, and provide you context in a way that helps you then look better in your role, and kind of be more successful in those collaboration efforts. And again, I think I attribute a lot of that due to a lot of the collaborative efforts in just building it.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
that
go ahead.
sorry. That's great. With and what you said about how it needs to be all those teams a little bit, or be able to help all those teams. So we need all those teams to help us build it, to tell us what they want, because I know what I want out of the data parts, so I'm happy taking ownership of the queries and all that good stuff. But yeah, having you inform the kind of questions UX people are asking, and things like that, it's really helped the tool be very agile as well.
And seeing the questions that people ask Discovery, seeing the questions that people ask our LLM engine is a customer and visitor research dream. I mean,
Yeah.
we will have hundreds of examples in people's specific language, how they talk as a support person, how they talk as a designer, how they talk in different languages, because it does support different languages, just like Lucky Orange. how people talk, we will see every single question that they're asking in a very positive, non-creepy way. We will see how people ask questions about their website visitors. To earlier in this conversation, you talked about how are my PPC campaigns doing? Well, there's probably 40 different ways to say that. And then you add languages, you add whatever. You add punctuation and grammar and spelling too. Seeing that is a huge benefit for our team to be able to better serve in all ways. So, of course, collaboration in building this tool, but then also in providing support and providing the right emails during a trial to help people understand what we're offering them, to provide specific support materials, demos, whatever it is. This is a huge benefit for our team the more people feed into it. Obviously, the primary goal is helping the user get to insights, helping them be successful. But internally, I don't think we can overstate how much of a benefit and how excited we are to see the conversation start flowing with this engine.
Well, even just like the abstraction that it provides. I mean, I think everybody who has ever built a customer facing survey kind of knows how those responses are going to come in, or has an expectation of the way people are going to respond. Or even if you've answered a survey from a company yourself, I think there's a specific type of language or kind of softness that people go into that with, where they're maybe not willing to reveal their hand too much, or maybe
Yeah.
they're being too kind or too generous or complimentary, or vice versa. Sometimes they're like, oh, this is my opportunity. No one's actually sitting here in front of me. I can tell them how I really feel. I think the benefit of seeing those things through discovery is their input is a direct representation of what they're wanting to get out of it. They're going to ask in a way that allows them to be successful, or allows discovery to be successful for them. And so there's that layer of abstraction where they aren't asking it to a person. They're almost asking it to themselves in a way. So the things they say and the way they frame them is much more informative, and much more conducive to research, to get it yourself into an environment that doesn't have all those variables that maybe impact the way someone talks to you. And I think that's one of the other biggest benefits of this is it doesn't feel like you have to tell us we're doing a good job. You're not having to tell it, like, pat our backs.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a survey asking you about discovery. It's the actual input and output of the tool. And so that's huge.
I smell a word cloud. Can we get a word cloud somewhere that shows us
Yeah.
all the
We
questions
can.
people are asking? Thank you, Jake. I'll mark that down. Count me in for one word cloud,
Yeah.
a giant word cloud. So let's look forward. Let's wrap up a little bit by looking forward at where we're going. I know that there have been a couple of really, really solid road mapping sessions recently as we've started to refine what we're going to put out the door in late summer. Let's say, I know that's the target for a lot of the more general releases here. Could you guys shift into kind of what's to come, what we're chasing in maybe the next 2 or 3 versions of this, and enhancements? It won't really be versions, but enhancements to how this will function and what we might see, what people could expect to layer in after this general release of Discovery?
Yeah. I mean, Jake, if you want to start by probably talking a bit about the advancements you've made, whether that's in terms of the knowledge graph or just the viability of the data itself, that'd probably be a good place to start there.
Yeah. Um, with and with this theme of we can't wait for all this user feedback and to see all these questions that people have. Um, that is where we're going to take it. We've set up some ways to make it really easy for us to go from here's a question that it can't answer to it can now answer that very quickly. And so as more as it gets used more and we collect more of these, oh, it didn't quite do that right, oh, we wish it did this better, oh, people didn't like if it did that, then that'll definitely evolve significantly over time. The knowledge graph will get smarter, more interconnected, more refined, and the things that people find helpful will surface more. And so a lot of things around that. And then there's been a lot of work right now on like architecture and efficiency things, because people don't want to sit and wait 10, 15 seconds for a response. And some of these data pulls are pretty big that it's generating. So trying to, one, reduce the number of API calls to the LLM providers, because that takes time, and people don't want to wait time. And two, making it so it it's more scalable in the, if other people are using it, it's not going to impact you using it. So there's a lot on the horizon, but for me right now, it's just a lot of setting up to quickly be able to adapt to what people tell us they want.
So like Jake's saying, the more you guys use it, the better it'll be. So please
Yes. Yes.
use it.
Please, please use
Yeah.
the thumbs up, thumbs down. I will read every single comment anybody leaves there.
Yes. Yeah. I think from my side of things, I think we've kind of touched on it a little bit actually, but similar to how we moved from the current or first iteration of Discovery to where we're working towards now and have beta users already testing it, was really identifying how people are using it, where they're finding value, and maybe where they aren't finding value. And one of the biggest things for that was really just first starting with, we want to be able to allow people to input custom queries. So being able to control what you're asking and not us providing you a set number of questions, seeing that progression, knowing that that's where the value is. We're doing a very similar thing here where as people start to use Discovery, we're going to be watching really closely to see what things may not be as strong or as powerful as they could be, and trying to lift those things up, but then also trying to maybe reduce some of the bloat that can be caused by this stuff. There's a lot of cool things and really awesome stuff that AI in general can kind of do, or opportunities it can create, but it also can become overwhelming and kind of balloon really quickly. There, you can get overwhelmed and you lose sight of that the core concept that we were striving to reach. So going forward, I think a lot of it is going to come from what users are doing really successfully and then what they aren't, and finding those areas to improve. So whether that is being able to surface, better insights or clear data, or being able to provide you with clearer context of to like how we got the data that we're surfacing, and not just popping it on your lap and essentially saying like, here you go, here's the number you were looking for, go on. We want to be able to get better about informing you. Here's the answer, here's how it happened, and here's how you may be able to repeat this again without the assistance of Discovery. So starting to get to where you're working hand in hand with Discovery and not necessarily always going to Discovery with a custom input. So that could look like a quick action that is powered by Discovery. So whether that's something we know you want to do, like a session summary or launching heat maps or building things in app, knowing that if we see value there, wanting to shift towards that. So the cool thing is about it is we're not a lot of it is set in stone. So we have really cool ideas. We have a lot of things we want to do or think we want to do, but also want those things to be validated by our users before we just invest a lot of time and money into building those things. Because as Jake and I said, the less coding that we could do, probably the better. So unless we have to, we probably don't want to build those things, unless it's the right thing to do. So as exciting as it is to throw all of the features in there and just kind of have the whole kitchen sink thrown at it, we know that that's not valuable, and it also then takes us away from the market that we know we can actually thrive in, and
Yeah.
we don't just become another wrapper on an LLM, right? So being really specific about the things we want to add in and doing that slowly and carefully. So not always having new releases or new features every week. That might not happen. It may be multiple months of us building towards something, but we know that time investment is worth it because of the value we get out of that. So that's really how we're evaluating Discovery and kind of the future state of it.
Yeah. I mean, I've caught wind of some super cool stuff that we can't talk about at all. But part of the reason we can't talk about it is because it is going to be so user driven. It's going to be driven by this giant word cloud that we're going to collect. See, word clouds.
Yes.
It's going to be driven by the user interactions with the tool. And that's the best thing we could possibly do for users is say, you're trying to do this. You might be having some success, but let's make it even more strategic and deploy this engine in different parts of the app. And I, for one, can't wait. I mean, I know it'll be done when it's done, but this is super exciting. I can't wait for everybody to get a hold of this, start throwing questions at it. Jake's going to be reading every single question. He's going to be not sleeping. I guess he doesn't really sleep much anyway, but he'll be sleeping even less. It's really an exciting time, and I can't wait to get it out there for people. So I'm super excited about it. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. It is a sweltering hot Kansas City day. The only thing hotter than the Kansas City day today is the ideas that are coming out of this team right now. So thank you for carving out time in your busy schedules. I really, really appreciate it. Appreciate you sharing your knowledge, and hope that everybody enjoys this conversation as much as I did. So thank you both.
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
Of course.
And definitely, please, guys, get in there and use it, and give us as much feedback as possible. Tell us what you like and don't like, because I want to know.
And if
Yes,
you do want to follow along more tightly, you can visit our website, go to luckyorange.com/discovery-beta. You can sign up for what's essentially an interest list. If you are a Lucky Orange user currently, that kind of makes you eligible to become a beta tester because we know you're interested in it. And if you're not, we'll send you some updates about how it's working, all the cool stuff that's coming along as we enhance it and get ready to release later this summer. All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Lucky Orange Show. Before we go, if you haven't tried Lucky Orange yet, head over to www.luckyorange.com for a free 7-day trial of our leading conversion rate optimization toolkit. What's in that toolkit? Well, let's start with session recordings and heat maps. With session recordings, you can watch a full playback of an entire visitor journey on your website. Everywhere they click, scroll, move, everything they do in your site, a full playback. So you can see what's getting in the way of conversions and what is getting people over that finish line to convert. With dynamic heat maps, you can see the average visitor behavior on a page. So you can see clicks, moves, and scrolls. You can see how far down the page the average visitor is scrolling. And if something is below that line, that means that more than 50% of visitors are not seeing that. Lucky Orange also offers tools like live chat, announcements, and surveys so that you can communicate with your website visitors in real time. So again, if you have not tried Lucky Orange, or if you're not a user yet, head over to luckyorange.com, check it out, 7-day free trial with no credit card required. If you're a Shopify store owner, head over to the Shopify App Store to download the Lucky Orange app to your store today, as well as BigCommerce, HubSpot, Square, and many more. Check us out, and happy optimizing.